If you're a student who is currently working hard to get into physical therapy school, I'm going to show you not only how to get into one PT program, but multiple PT programs. Imagine if you now had the new problem of having to choose between one school and the other, or between 3 schools or 4 schools or 5 schools. I'm going to show you how to get multiple acceptance letters, okay? So lock in with me, and this is primarily for students who want to become physical therapists. But before we dive in, my name is Joseph Zgugi. I'm a physical therapist, one of the co-founders of Pre-PT Grind, where for years we have helped students get into physical therapy school without wasting time or money. And we've watched a lot of interesting things over the years. We've seen some stories that would feel impossible to most people, but we're now starting to realize that they're the norm. And this whole thing of getting into school is actually more predictable than most of us think. So I instantly think of one of our students who had a 2.54 GPA after graduating college, and he got rejected 4 years in a row before finally starting to work with us and applying some of the things that I'm about to share with you. And once he applied them, he got into not just one school, but 2 schools. I instantly remember one of our other students who had applied to somewhere between 15 and 20 schools. And when she did so, she got all rejection letters the first time she applied. And her initial plan was, I'm going to apply to 25 to 30 schools the next go round, because that's what makes sense. If I apply to more schools, I'll have a better chance of getting in, only to somehow get on a call with one of us. And we told her that that's actually not the best way to get accepted. And the next go round, she applied to only 5 schools, and she didn't just get 1 acceptance letter, not 2, but 3 acceptance letters. So that's the game, right? And these are students just like you, students who had the same fear, students who also struggled with rejection, the fear of rejection, the fear of letting their family down, the fear of letting themselves down, the fear of being behind, because some of the things, especially for those of y'all that have, feel a little older, whether you're in your mid 20s or 30s or 40s, these are real things. But there is a predictable way to actually get into PT school, not once, but multiple times. And I'm going to share it with you. And the reason why this is important as well is because we get on a bunch of calls with students, and there's this element of fear, but more importantly, something that I've noticed a lot lately is that whenever I ask students, okay, so what do you feel will help you stand out? They usually say the things they think will help them stand out, not necessarily what they know the schools want. For example, I'll ask that question, and sometimes I'll get, I just feel like I need way more shadowing hours so that the school knows that I am locked in, and the school knows that I'm serious about this. And then I ask them the question, okay, so what happens if someone else has double the hours? They're like, oh no, so do I have to get more hours? And I'm like, hold on, maybe we're asking the wrong question. Or they'll say something along the lines of, I need more experiences. I need other things that just look good. Or I just need a better essay. Even though I have not so good grades and I have a low GRE score, I need to have experience. I need to have a better essay so that they can see that, and hopefully they'll give me a chance. And it's this game of hope. Have you ever felt that way, where it feels like a game of hope, where it's like, I don't quite know what the schools want, and at the same time, I'm also kind of looking at other students, and I notice that other students have a few things that are better than me. They have higher grades, they have better test scores, they have more experiences, they have more observation hours, and what does that add to it? It adds to this sense of feeling like you're not good enough, and you start to get in your head. You start to be anxious as a student that wants to become a physical therapist, and slowly but surely, that dream of becoming a physical therapist starts to feel like it's slipping out of your hands. Does any of this sound like you? Well, that's why this video is here. And so if you want to get not just 1 acceptance letter, but multiple acceptance letters, here's a few things you need to understand. And this is everything that I'm telling you. And I say this a lot of times when students get on a call with us, is I say that what we say is not just our opinion, right? If it's an opinion, we will tell you it's an opinion, but the majority of what we talk about here is just what we've seen over the years. And after working with a lot of students, this is just straight up data that's been proven. And we've just seen so many different low GPA students who have been rejected before, students who are older, younger, struggle with the GRE, all the different pieces that we've noticed patterns and noticed, wait a minute, it really doesn't matter where they start. It's just a matter of them doing the right things. And what usually happens on the other side is multiple acceptance letters. And so here's the first thing that you need to understand. Write this down, or whatever is going to help you remember this. But the first thing you need to understand is that if you want to get not just 1, but multiple acceptance letters, you have to avoid guesswork. One of the main mistakes that I see with students is we think we know what the school wants, when in reality, we don't really know what the school wants. Like, pay attention to, okay, so think about the whatever you feel like you're not good enough at, or whatever you think you need to improve in your application. It's not that you don't need to improve it, but pay attention to what you think is going to help you get the yes from the school, whether it's a bunch more hours or more experiences or all the examples that I gave earlier. And then ask yourself, where did that like, where did that come from? Like, where did you get the idea that that was the thing you needed to do? And the reason why I ask you is because I ask that question on calls, and students typically tell me, yeah, well, I have a cousin that is going to medical school. So I was like, oh, whoa, medical school and PT school is slightly different. So you doing exactly what someone did to get to med school is not the same. So, okay, who else? Well, my parents have told me that when they were in oh, hold on, are your parents physical therapists? Right? Or, oh yeah, no, my school advisor, hold on, is this like a physical therapist that's a school advisor that has also been on this path that understands the details of this well, no, they're more general. They kind of work with all undergrad and healthcare and pre-med and pre-PT and pre-dent and all this stuff. So I'm like, oh wow, so you're listening to people that are giving you an opinion. And so they're like, ooh. I was like, well, let me ask you a question. In this whole equation of applying to PT school, whose decision is at stake? Like who's the one making the decision as to whether you're going to be in their program or not? And the student always says, well, the school. I was like, exactly. So how much work have you put into asking the schools directly or finding out what the schools actually want? And they're like, none. And so it's interesting. It's almost like if someone was going to do something kind for you, someone that's maybe an acquaintance or something like that, they either got to ask someone that knows you well, or they got to ask you directly what you like, what you're about. They got to spend time getting to know you, right? Because the better they know you, the more accurate they're going to be when they give you a gift and know that it's actually something you'll enjoy or some activity, because they know that you like a certain artist. So if they get you concert ticket to see that artist, it'll mean a lot to you, but they don't find out that information unless they have invested time into either finding it out from you directly or from the people closest to you. It's the same thing with physical therapy school. One of the biggest mistakes is that we assume. So don't assume. Do not assume. If you want to get more than one acceptance letter, I mean, one is good, but more is better. If you want to get more than one acceptance letter, do not assume. Like, if you, assuming just steals so many dreams, because now we start doing things that are just out of whatever we think will stand out, and then we make up some story. We're like, well, if I get more hours, they'll think I work hard. I mean, how do you know? Like, you haven't heard it from them. Here's the thing with schools. Physical therapy schools are scared. Physical therapy schools are scared that you won't be able to make it in their program. They're scared that if they accept you, you'll get kicked out. And for number one, they don't want you to get kicked out because they actually do want you to become a physical therapist. But secondly, they don't want you to get kicked out because if, say, half the class gets kicked out of the program, what does that do to their reputation? It goes down, right? Because they know that if they had a 50% success rate, guess who would not apply to their program? You. And so they understand that. And because they understand that, they're like, okay, well, we got to make sure that our selection process when it comes to the students that are coming into our program, like, really allows us to feel like these students can actually handle it. And so there's that's just one of the fears. But schools have certain fears, certain doubts they have. And your job as a student is to make sure that, number one, you're applying to a school that is actually a good fit, but you're also doing the things that reduce their doubt. And just slapping on 1,000 more observation hours does nothing for that at all. Does that make sense? And so here are 3 things, and I've shared them before, that are very important to think about when it comes to the application process. And most students think, oh, it's just plug stuff into PT-CAS and then study for the GRE. I can't tell you how many students this year alone I've told that they probably have a better chance of getting in if they apply next year. And it's just because they ignored certain things that are non-negotiables for school. They were like, oh, I'm not gonna wait. Like, so one I hear a lot, and maybe this will, I mean, if you're listening to this and this bothers you, then it means that I'm speaking to you directly. So one I hear a lot is, well, I know that my prerequisite GPA is lower, but I really don't want to take those classes again, so I just decided to get more hours. And I'm like, well, what does that do to actually increase confidence in the school that you'll actually be able to handle the academic rigor of PT school? Are you seeing what I'm saying? So sometimes the things that we're avoiding doing are the things that would be our ticket into a program. And so that's how I want you to start thinking. And even students that work with us in our coaching programs, they know, they understand. They're like, listen, like and truthfully, they want an acceptance letter. Like, they're serious. They're like, yo, I do not want to guess. I don't want to feel like I'm shooting in the dark. I don't want to feel like I'm just kind of tossing my application out there and just hoping that everything lands. It's almost like the analogy I use a lot is almost like a dartboard, and you're closing your eyes and you're blindfolded and you're trying to hit a dartboard, like in the dark, as opposed to actually opening up your eyes, aiming for the bullseye, and actually having a higher chance of hitting the board. And so that's the same thing with applying to PT school. There's so much more control than you realize. And once you can start accepting that, you'll realize, oh, there's a lot of things I can do to not just get one acceptance letter, but multiple acceptance letters. Is this making sense so far? And then the last piece, and this is something that I've shared a lot, is there's 3 levels of what you want to look at when it comes to being a strong applicant. The first level is you want to find the right schools for you, right? You want to figure out what are the schools that give me the highest chance of getting in? What are the schools that are the best match for me? And there's certain things that you want to look at. We, like for our coaching program students, we actually have a software that we've built for them that helps them find their perfect match schools. And it's really, really cool. So basically what would typically, if done well, take weeks for someone to do, our students can do in an afternoon. But first thing is we got to figure out what schools are the best ones for me, because one of the things that I think a lot of students, I don't know if you want to hear this, but it's the truth. Not every school's for you, right? And I think sometimes we're like, well, I just got to apply to a program, just go for it. And part of it is sometimes the schools that are local might not be the best match for you. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, right? And so I've seen students waste years. I'm talking years of applying, and they're applying to the same 4 schools that are local because they're like, maybe this year is it, maybe this year is it. And then when we look at everything on paper, we're like, you were never a match for those programs. You have this thing over here and they want this. It just doesn't match. But there are schools out there that are a match for you. So would you rather keep going at it with these programs locally, or would you rather match up with a school that gives you a higher chance of getting a yes? It's just a question you have to ask yourself. But that's the first thing, the right schools. The second thing is playing to the odds. And for us, it's just data. We've just seen it with tons of students for years now, right? And somewhere between 4 and 7 schools is a sweet spot. 4 and 7 schools of the right programs. And there's reasons for that. And if y'all want me to break that down, I've talked about it more in other videos. But everything I'm telling you, there is a reason for it. But for the sake of this training, I'm not going to break that down in too much detail. But the last part is focusing. Once you've done those first 2, pick the right schools. Apply to 4, like choose 4 to 7. And like right now, if you're a freshman, if you're a sophomore, if you're a junior, if you're a senior, if you're 12 months or less from applying to PT school, it doesn't matter. Like start figuring that out first, because those are the people that are going to say yes or no. And every single school is slightly different. So there's going to be certain things that we're going to have to put into getting to know the school better than what's on their website. And so start that now. But 4 to 7, sweet spot. And then the last thing is focus only on the controllables, right? I think a big piece is if I know the right schools and I start understanding what the school's about, what the school values, what the school's fears are, what the school's desires are, what they prioritize, and there's ways of figuring these things out, then it's so much easier to then focus on the right controllables. It's so much easier for me to be like, okay, it does make sense for me to retake my C's and D's and F's that were prereqs, because that, if I retake these classes, especially because I'm applying to schools where they can actually replace my grade with prereqs, cool. If I turn that D into an A, whoa, my prereq GPA can jump from this to this. And now you start to really just focus on only the controllables. Oh man, I got to get a better GRE score. So now the controllables looks like retaking the GRE. And if you don't know how to do that, if you don't know how to get a better score, it's like, cool, I need to hire someone that can help me make sure that I get a better score on the GRE. And that's how the game works. Does that make sense? And so those are the biggest pieces. If you want to get not just one acceptance letter, but multiple acceptance letters, that's where to begin. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that gave you some direction. And for those of y'all that are newer to our platform, please be sure to like, subscribe, share this out with your friends. And for those of y'all that are like, you know what, I want like personalized guidance through this process. I don't want to guess. Like I want tailored guidance. I want someone to hold me by the hand. I want someone to show me the step-by-step process of pulling this off. And I'm committed to doing whatever I need to do to get accepted. Then go to www.acceptedstrategy.com, www.acceptedstrategy.com. Schedule a call with one of our team members and we'll talk with you soon and we'll help you figure out what the best moves are for you, what your next best steps are. And of course, if we have a resource or a program or a coaching program or something that'll help you get one step closer and help you solve the biggest holes in your application journey, then we got you. And the last thing I'll leave you with is you're not the only one. Whatever you feel like you're the only one dealing with, you're not the only one. And that's a good thing. It means that since you're not the only one, you're also not the first. And since you're not the first, it means that someone else has dealt with what you're going through right now and still was able to get to the other side. So the questions you need to ask yourself is, first, if they could do it, why not me? And then secondly is, what did they do differently that I'm not? And typically they got help. It's okay to get help, by the way. And so that's it. I hope this was helpful. I hope this gave you some direction. I hope this lit a fire as well. And of course, we'll see you on the next training. Have a good one. Bye.